Hey there, Mama. Welcome back to another episode of the Working Mumma Podcast. This week, I'm actually going to share some of my experiences as a first year mum with a prep schooler or foundation. It's been, I have to say, a roller coaster. And why you may be sharing this, you ask? Well, I know that there are actually some big transitions that we actually go through as mums. The first, I actually think, is actually that transition of becoming a mum. Then the second is about then going back into work. So the transition of being a mum and a new child, but then also then re-entering into the workforce and also then that transition into childcare. One thing that I have to say, I didn't realize how big a transition there would be is another third part of that is actually the transition from childcare into school. And it's often not really talked about too much. It's like, yay, they all start school and things like that. But I'd actually have to say, and I really would love to rip off the Band-Aid and say that being a working parent and actually having two working parents with a child in school has actually required a lot more logistics, a lot more planning than, say, if they're at childcare. So that's why I wanted to go through with you with my experiences today on the podcast as a first year mum with a prep schooler. I know as well at the moment I'm recording this in end of November 2024, and it's that time of the year and phases of actually, the prep transitions. So that's why I thought I'd also record this, because I would honestly have loved someone to tell me 12 months ago some of the challenges, also some of the emotions that I would go through, and also some of the planning. So that's what I'm going to go through today. Some of the emotions, logistics, and also lessons learned, because I'm also about to actually send my youngest into kindergarten and he's actually going to go to a sessional as part of a school kindergarten. He's still going to stay at our childcare centre one day a week, but he's also going to go to kindergarten because the hours match. So it's one of those things that, I'm also now going through it again of that transition. So we'll actually start off by those emotions and the transition. Transition as well is not, it's generally my experience has been, say, about 10 to 11 on maybe a Friday. It's not easy with work because you also, 10 o'clock, it's maybe you do a little bit of work, send them off to school. Sometimes you're there with them, sometimes you're not. I remember my son, when he went for his first transition, I literally sent him into the art room. He said goodbye and away he went. And I thought, yep, this is going to be easy. Little did I know how much of a walk in the park it was not going to be. So we did that. And then that day, then sent him back to childcare. I think it was also really exciting that they were all, I think, doing something similar on the same day or around that period. So then he was also then going to start to go, compare notes, I guess, with his friends. We then had the kinder graduation, which I have to say was a really cute thing. Like, I had lots of tears, but also that was my community that had been for about 5 years. I got to know a lot of the parents. We knew each other at drop-offs and pickups and birthday parties and compare notes. Also for myself, my world and my social circle in that sense was actually changing. And so I was going to have to get to know as well, and same with my husband, a whole new group of people. And we're still in that journey even 12 months on. Also, that we've also got this first school info nights. You get all the parents here, and it's funny because you get a pack as well of actually, all the different forms and things that you've got to fill out. Even though you feel like you've already filled out everything that you possibly could about your child, there's still more that you need to fill out. And you also find about your school teacher and you say hello, which is, again, meet and greet for the first time. They don't know you from a bar of soap and you're just such and such as mother, and that's okay. It's funny as well, in those info nights, all the parents are actually there sussing each other out as well. You can already tell that some people know each other, others don't. For me, it was also a really interesting experience where my son, even though he went to a nearby childcare, literally no one from his childcare went to his school. So I couldn't say, oh, you'll know such and such, you'll be in the same class and that. We didn't know a soul. I did not know anyone at that school, even though we lived about 1 kilometre away. So it was that, I have to say as well, was a bit daunting for everyone, and also as part of the storytelling component. I have done a podcast before, and I'll link to it in the show notes, about the storytelling and actually writing stories to actually help with your children, to actually help with that transition, and help that first day. So I'll link that to you as well. So that's where I guess we have the before period. You're actually physically starting school. So you've got that transition of, as I said, the meet and greets, both for the children as well as the parents. Then you've got the lead into it as well, where you're buying the uniform and you're buying everything, 3 sizes too big, because you're thinking, my goodness, it's amazing how much they do grow in that first 12 months. Buying the lunch boxes and naming everything. And top tip, definitely name everything. It's amazing how many times we have lost something. Even I picked my son up today, end of prep. He still left his hat in the grade 5 classroom with one of his buddies because he was more interested in drawing than what he would actually finding his hat. They sometimes as well do some assessments as well, and that they actually, in Victoria, where I live, they also have to do assessments before they actually start school. Sometimes they actually do them throughout term 1. My primary school decided to do them all before they started school, so that way everyone's starting off the same benchmark, so to speak. But then they're doing assessments. Other schools do assessments throughout term 1. So it depends on how you do it. Also, some schools will start immediately 5 days a week, 9 till 3:30. It's huge. My son did that. But then others will maybe have a slow transition in. You may have a day off a week, and usually that day off is actually for the testing. So there are a whole lot of different ways that schools do it. One of the things as well is just be mindful and prepared for that. And I'm sure they'll actually prepare you as part of the information briefings. Part of the challenge as well with the different transitions, and even my school acknowledged this, is that it's hard for working parents. If you're having, say, a 9 till 1, 9 till, even 9 till 12 day, what are you going to do for the other half of the day? That's only, pretty much it's 3 hours, even less, once you get home after drop off and pick up, of actually doing real work. You don't have childcare available to you anymore. Can't use after school care. So it's a real challenge in those first couple of weeks of navigating your work schedule along with the school transition as well. Just something to be in mind as well, because, you want to plan that between both yourself and your partner. You even may need members of your village to come in and help you, but it really depends on what that transition is in those first days of school. So it's also there as well, they do those early transitions, and then you have day 1. So you've got them all dressed up. There's so much, I'd have to say, emotion and excitement all built into one. I won't lie, I was a little bit teary when I was getting the lunchbox ready. It was also such a milestone and a real big moment. My parents came round to look after our youngest, so then my husband and I could then be really focused on our eldest son as he started school. Walking in, I don't think I've ever had his hand hold on to mine so tightly. And I think I was also holding on to his quite tightly. And I'm there trying not to show any sad emotions. But behind the sunglasses, yes, there were a couple of tears. Definitely from, I think it's just this big milestone. I don't know what's going on as well. But I knew in myself I need to have that external emotions. And I didn't want to show too much of that to my son. My husband saw it. He turned around and he was walking just in front of us. He did laugh a little bit, which also helped ease me. We went into the school, went to his classroom, found his spot, said hello to some parents, but it was very much because everyone was just focused on their children. At 9:00, and when the school bell rang, we're going, the teacher said, okay, you can go now. And that was at that moment, another string was cut of that mother component of, my big boy has, started school. It's such a big milestone. And there you are, you let them go forth and play. And it was weird, I have to say, just walking out. I know that some schools do like morning teas and things like that to welcome the parents, which I have to say, if you've got the opportunity to say organise one or to actually attend one, highly recommend it, so you can start to get to know just even a few other parents that you may start to see regularly in the school drop off and pickups and things like that. Even also just to know that you're not the only one going through this. I had 2 really close friends that I actually messaged and like, oh my goodness, these are the emotions. And they're saying, yes, they're going through the same emotions as well, because our kids have all gone through together. And it was quite nice to know, and it's just similar to other parts of being a working mum, knowing that you're not alone in the emotions that you're feeling, knowing that you're not alone in just the challenges of navigating school and work hours. It has also really helped me this year. And even as well at times when we've had some challenging moments, I'm like, okay, cool. We'll just keep putting one foot in front of the other, but also know that I've got two other people at the end of a message that are actually going through some things for the first time. That first pickup at the end of the day was a little bit different. Also, just navigating where to park, which as well, ours is probably at the larger end or sort of a mid-sized school. So even, it's in suburbia. So you're trying to navigate, where do you park? How early do you need to get there? It's amazing. Even to this day, I still can't believe how early some parents get there just to pick up their kids. As you may see some photos of me on my Instagram stories, I regularly on a Monday will just walk up and ride the bike up to get my son, because it feels like I'm just might as well be walking there because I'm parking halfway home anyway. Very lucky that we do live that close to school. But it's one of those things as well that you just don't know. It's something new. And so it's a big part. That first day, even that first week and month, it was, he was pretty buggered. But I have to say as well, the emotions and the reality of it was there. I won't lie. Term 1 for me was quite a challenging period. My son took a little bit of time to adjust to the new routine. He seemed to find some friends pretty quickly, but whenever I dropped him off, it was very emotional. There was one time where he was actually holding a pole, would not let go. We actually needed 2 teachers to help come and, untie him and help him away. It wasn't physical, it wasn't violent or anything like that, but it was just trying to get him into the situation so he could then start to do that. And I remember one time where I actually had to sneak out one door so he wouldn't see me, and we kind of had to have an intervention so I could actually leave because he was quite emotional. And I have to say, I walked out of that school at the time, rang my husband, and I was bursting with tears going, what have we done wrong? I thought he was prepared. I'm a bad mom. And I had all of those thoughts going through my head. And I'm just going to be completely honest with you. That's what I thought. What have I done? Am I a bad mum? Have we done something wrong? Did we do the wrong thing of sending to childcare rather than kinder? Trust me, I doubted so many things in that period. It was really challenging. And there were some other students who I've now learnt that have been tutored before they actually got to school. So they already got to school, they're reading, writing and things like that. My son knew bits of the alphabet, knew how to write his name, and that was about it. And I felt that, say, maybe childcare let him down, but we've since looked that, the syllabus is that he doesn't have to read and write by the time he starts prep. But it was really challenging of also that adjustment of where some kids are, that have been maybe pushed or tutored, others haven't, like my son. But I was sitting there sometimes going, if they had to kick a football, they probably don't kick it as well as my son because, that's what he loves, and doing Lego and that creativity and things like that. And I really wanted him and particularly his teacher to recognize that. I think now she has appreciated it and understands that he's just a boisterous boy. But it's one of those things that for me, term 1 felt like it lasted forever. It just went on and on and on. But we got there. And every week when we were doing what we were doing with key rings, my son's will do phonics, and it was really helping him with his learning and the way they do words and structures and things like that together. I was reading with him tonight, and it's amazing. And it actually makes me a bit emotional to think how far he has come in the last 10 months since he started school. He couldn't write a sentence beforehand. He couldn't, know the different sounds and when to put a full stop and when to do capital letters and subtraction, addition and things like that. He has grown so much in so many ways. And I'm actually really proud of him, but also the structure that's been around him. I know that at times that his school probably pushed them a little bit more, but just for what I know that the world's like, and I know that they wouldn't do that unless they, needed to. So you also do doubt, I was doubting at times, have we made the right decision? Is it the right school? Is it because we have quite a high non-English speaking component of the schools in the area. So there was also that adjustment. And you do question. I literally came home a couple of times questioning myself if I made the right decision. Not me, but my husband and I. As I said, 10 months on, we're almost at the end of the year, and I feel that we actually have. It took us a while to get there, and we then had to back ourselves, trust our gut, but we've actually feel like we've made the decision. But I have to say, emotionally, it has definitely been a roller coaster in that first term. And I was even saying to one of his friends' mums the other day that first term really dragged, but then the last 3 terms, I feel like they've been on fast forward. And I almost want to go back and just put a pause or just go a little bit slower because there is really something special about that first prep year. Now, I would want to just switch a little bit. That's been my experiences of some of the emotions. But also, I want to share and lift the lid as well around the reality of school hours and childcare. I have to say, I look back now going, childcare was an absolute breeze. Yes, it costs an absolute fortune, but I guess we've paid as well a little bit for that luxury where I could drop, between my husband and I, we could drop off the boys, go to work and then come home and we're not stressed. All we have to do is make sure we're there before 6:30 and it's fine. They're fed, they've had nappies when they needed to, everything, they've had education and things like that. And they've had great educators along the way. Whereas going into school, 9 till 3:30 doesn't fit in with a typical work day. And I would say typical, in inverted commas, of 9 till say 5:30. It's really difficult as well. We're not allowed to drop off your children until 8:45 in the morning. So that's where I have to say as well, having flexible work and also hybrid work has really helped make it a reality. So the way that we've tried to work it is that whenever one of us is home, the other one is in the office. I know that's not possible for everyone. Everyone has their own situation. And trust me, the days that we both need to be in the office, it is an absolute chaos at the end of the day of literally the phone call of who's getting what child, who's making dinner. And we've tried to plan a dinner that takes, 20, 30 minutes tops to actually get ready. It's sometimes dinner that we generally try to eat, say maybe 5:45. It's a dinner just after 6. And it feels like it's chaos. And you come, get to about 8 o'clock and you're like, oh, I'm exhausted. And I wonder why, because you've tried to do the drop-offs, go into the office, come home, and then get dinner, do pickups and things like that. It's mental. So when we're doing it at school, because we've got 2 different places we've got to do that. But when we just had one person that we could just go to one place, pick up both the kids and come home, it was definitely a lot easier. Also then mapping out of who's where. So we had to be probably a lot more communication of, okay, I'm going to be working from home tomorrow. I'm not going to be working from home tomorrow. On a Thursday, we've had grandparents that have helped out, but every other day, we've then had to navigate it. I work generally Tuesday to Friday, but I've also recently had to work some Mondays. So that's meant a juggle around of after school care. And then you've got to log into a system. We use Team Kids. I've got to log in, make the booking and things like that. I've had to do a couple of times of, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be there at 3:30 for pickup. I may have been stuck in a meeting. So there am I madly then trying to then organize after school care and things like that. That side of it, I have to say there's been a lot more planning behind it because, as I said, 9 till 3:30, that doesn't really fit into the framework of, say, the 9 till 5 typical, plus also the travel, in the office. My travel is about an hour away on the train. So I've actually got to make sure that, right planning and things as well. But I have to say, as I said, good communication with my partner and my husband has been really useful, and booking in and having that account set up for after school and even before school programs we've had to utilize a couple of times when I've been traveling and my husband's had to go into the city. And so those have been really helpful. Even using your village if need be. I've seen other parents of texting people of saying, can you look after my child quickly, and helping out that way has really made a big difference. But there's at times I know that some people choose not to use after school care and they use like grandparents or parents or, and the like. But for me, I've actually been able to use the after school programs has really helped. But then also then by using that, it's also then helped with holiday programs, which again, 12 weeks leave for kids at school doesn't really fit into the 4 weeks annual leave that you get every year from your workplace. Yes, you can purchase leave and things like that, which helps out. I've also been with my corporate organisation for quite a while, so I've actually got so much annual leave, which actually I have to say now, part of the reason why I've been banking it is because I knew that I was going to be, I was going to have kids and I'd always need that extra leave. And definitely as we're going into our first extended period of holidays, I'm actually going to be hopefully working at 2-3 days a week over January, so then I can then really make use of getting also my leave balance down, which I know HR are really keen on. So it's one of those things as well. But his after school care, he's really also enjoyed. He's got to know heaps of other kids in other year levels. The educators have been wonderful. And that's actually been really helpful, like particularly early on in term one of saying, oh, you're going to Team Kids Day. He's like, oh, cool. And it was a reason, it was a benefit for him going to school. I really at times did have to sell it to him. For example, you'll get a lolly, you'll get this. Like it sounds like bribery and corruption. But trust me, when your child is crying and holding on to you, not wanting to let go, you need to do anything that you can to get him in there. It's very emotional for both of you. Even if you have done storytelling, you've talked about it and things like that. Sometimes the reality is a lot harder. Now I'll move on to the next layer of involvement of school is the notifications and events. Typically with childcare, you go there, you drop them off. You may have an app with some photos. You'll get a brief overview of the day and that's about it. There might be some maybe events for Mother's Day, Father's Day, Grandparents' Day, which are, relatively easy and Christmas and the like. But I have to say school is next level of, the additional mental load. You've generally got excursions, you've got swimming, you've got all the different school apps. We've used Compass as an app, but then also you've got the newsletters and the different emails and excursions and assemblies and where they are and things like that. There seems to be a lot more communication, which is actually a good thing that comes from school. So you don't get the normal updates of this is what they've done for the day. You've got to try and extract them out. Sometimes getting blood out of a stone, I'm sure, is easier than trying to extract what they've done for the day. But just keeping track of things so you do actually sometimes miss things and you're like, oh my goodness, what have I done again? What have I missed? And, is it free dress days, which they seem to have at least minimum once a term? And what am I giving money for here? Or what have I got to do here? Trust me, as soon as I get something, I quickly put it into my joint calendar that I've got with my husband. So then we've both got transparency about what's happening. Even more important events or something, we'll put into calendars so that it's in both our personal calendar as well as our work calendar, particularly if things need to be moved around. And just so we've also got that full transparency, but definitely diarising things there has been really, really helpful. And other things to help you stay up to date, if you can get a WhatsApp group with your child's classroom or the year level or say a Facebook group. Sometimes there's also been some really good things of just reminders or, social activities of trying to get everyone involved and that so it can actually really be there. Then another part as well is about the learning engagement and the teacher communication. The teacher for us has actually been really helpful. We were actually suggested that, to get different assessments done, and that's actually been really helpful that, we've actually had most of them come back really positive and nothing wrong with hearing or eyes or that. We're just waiting on one final assessment from something else. And if we have to do some work there, that's fine. But everyone's seeing actually he is making progress, which I think is the one thing. And our school have like an integration aid and a teacher's aid that come in and help kids, like say with reading and writing or maths and things like that. When I first got a letter home from the school, I have to say I felt like a bit of a failure of like, oh my goodness, like, am I doing this? Like, is this because I'm a working mum or with a working situation? Am I doing something bad? And what have I done wrong? Is usually where I've got to. It wasn't until I've actually spoken to a couple of other parents or I've heard the other children that are in it. I'm like, oh my goodness, like, okay, we're not alone in this. They're exactly the same thing. And, they're actually getting extra help. And I've actually then reframed my thinking of, okay, you're being taken out to have like one-on-one support and I can actually see the benefit that it's happening. I'm like, go for it. If the school's giving that for you, you know what? Take it. So then you're not in such a big classroom setting. That one-on-one or say maybe 1 to 4 is actually having a really big benefit. So I actually I switched my mindset around it. And so now I'm like, oh, are you saying such and such? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, okay. And I actually know of someone where she actually pushed for her son to go back into that environment so he could actually then get that extra help. So it's one of those things of actually how you're first presented with the situation and how reality of it is, and also just that shift of mindset and actually really helped. But also having a really good bond and communication with teacher also really helped. So if she was noticing something, we could then work together to actually, improve it. Initially, I felt a bit of resentment against her, like, oh my goodness, like what's my son done and things like that. Few, of course. you always think your children's, the apple in your eye. But it wasn't until you start seeing it for yourself, and then you can then say, okay, right, what can I do as a parent? How can I support them? And then you actually then start seeing that transition as well. There are some challenging times where trying to be like, come on, son, do this, or, let's try and work on this together and things like that. There has been those moments, but often he will actually start to come to see the reason why that I'm actually encouraging him to do something. But even 12 months ago, him drawing was just a bit of a scribble. Even today, as we're getting dinner ready, he's drawing an ambulance and drawing cars and based on different step-by-step ways to do it. And he can do, draw the Titanic off memory. And it's one of those things that just, I'm like, wow. And really taking a step back on reflecting how far he has come personally. And I think even as a parent, just the way that kids learn is so different to the way we learn. I learned, over 30 years ago, 35 years ago, I think I started prep, even longer. So it's really changed a lot, and phonics and things like that. So you've got to sometimes put the way that you did things just to the side. And I think even from a work perspective as a leadership, you have to go, no, everyone's got their different way of doing things. And it has actually made me then grow a lot as a leader and as a manager as well. So yeah, definitely some quick lessons learned is really if you're going through the emotional journey and it's feeling like a bit of a roller coaster, it's completely normal. It's there. It's a transition, not just for yourself, but also for your child as well. And I probably didn't expect and probably reflect on how big a journey it was going to be. I thought going back to work and the childcare transition was huge. But now I've actually realized that starting school is another massive transition for your child, but also for you, but also then your village, and also how you navigate work and motherhood. It's a different ball game in a different way compared to childcare, as what I spoke earlier. Definitely as well staying flexible and asking for help, but definitely as well some practical tips for balancing school and work life. Communicate with your husband or your partner at the start of every week. Okay, are you having big weeks or quiet weeks? Is something really going on at the moment? So at least you can both be prepared. Having a joint calendar, communicating those key events. I've even now got a written calendar because then my son now can read. He can then read the calendar and actually see what's going on as well. So that's actually then brought another dimension in it, using your village around you. So as I said, I use grandparents every Thursday for pickup and sometimes drop off, and also then using before or after school care, both during the school term, but also in holidays. And also planning out school holidays is another thing as well. Okay, when are you going to have time off, and when's your partner going to have time off, or are you both going to have time off, and holidays as well need to be considered. So I'd have to say there's a lot more planning. And also, as soon as you get something in on the app or notifications, you put it into your calendar and put it into the memory bank, because there is a lot more notifications that are coming. And if I don't do it at the time, I know that I'll forget. And I'll be like, oh my goodness, forgot that $4 for this and $5 for that and the like. But also some practical tips is putting as well into your own work calendar that if you're doing school pickup, I block off that time. So you may between say 3:15 and 3:45 that no meetings in around that. And sometimes as well owning, look, I'm working from home, that I've actually got to go do pickup, and that you'll be, maybe not available for that half an hour and things like that. And it is a challenge at times. So I think open communication as well with your teacher can be really helpful. But you know what? I think the biggest thing as well is just don't be too hard on yourself. It is challenging. It is a journey. It's a roller coaster, but there is some learnings as well in there. It'll take a little bit just to adjust to. And I think also give yourself the breathing space, and also allow yourself to reflect, okay, is this going okay? What can I change? What do I need to change? Just take that moment for reflection, not only with yourself, but also with your partner, and actually say, okay, is it going okay? You can kind of get a sense check for it as well, but don't go too hard on yourself too early on. I have to say, school, you don't know what it's going to be like, similar to going back to work. Give yourself some time. Do what works for best for you and your family. And I think that's also, just as I say with most other things, do what works for you. These are what's some of the challenges, but also things that I've recognized really help for me. So I'd love to hear as well what have been your tips from your managing your child's first year of school. If you're going through the transition at the moment, best of luck. If you can, at times, as I often say, with mental load, write it down, try and get it out of your mind. Also think about what might work, and don't be afraid to pivot, change your work days, maybe from working home, and ask for some more flexibility, particularly in those first few weeks. You could always just be open and honest with your work of saying, look, my child's transitioning into prep. I just want to be around. And I did that as well. I said, look, I want to work from home for the first week. And I then got that flexibility. And I have to say, I'm really lucky with my employer. But please know that you're not alone. And if there are some emotions with your children, you learn something new, trust me, I've been there. You aren't alone, and it will be a journey. And also, if your child has a really smooth transition, kudos to you. And I have to say, well done, and for all the preparation that you've done to get them there. So with that, best of luck. As always, if you could leave a rating or review, that would be amazing. And until next week, I'll catch you later. Thank you for listening to the Working Mumma Podcast. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast catcher. Please also feel free to contact me on any of the Working Mumma social channels. Remember, Mumma is MUMMA, or website www.workingmumma.com.au. I would appreciate you to share this podcast with friends and colleagues, especially those that are parents managing the juggle. And I would really appreciate if you were to take the time out to leave a review of the podcast. Thank you, and see you next time. Have a great week.